Okay, so there's been a lot of wow, totally lost my train of thought. A lot of new people getting into the world of guns. As far as people panic buying firearms and munitions, a lot of times for the first time. Um, so with that being said, there's a lot of new, inexperienced shooters out there, or a lot of people who are new to firearms and now own firearms. And I figured that this would be a good time to talk about some very, very, very basic handling kind of stuff and um, safety guidelines when it comes to firearms. I want to preface this video right now, taking a little break from what I was just talking about, to say I am not an expert. I am not a concealed weapons permit carrier. I am not formally trained in any way, shape, or form. So take this all with a grain of salt, obviously. I am literally just a dude who owns guns. Everything I know is pretty much self-taught. I have a few friends who have, helped me get into everything and helped me out throughout the whole process of getting into guns. But for the most part, I have just been literally just watching gun videos since I was a wee lad. That's pretty much how I approach everything in my life. I just literally, if I want to learn something new, I just watch like 300 hours of varied content on that specific topic, trying to get a feel for it, trying to, get non-biased accounts. I don't want to fucking wear that. Let's try this instead. Yeah, that feels better. Okay. Anywho, so just getting into things. I'm gonna cover a couple of my firearms, or all of my firearms actually, because I feel like my firearms are kind of cover a basis of what most people are going to be interacting with. Most of my firearms are very cheap and very accessible, which is going to be the bulk of what most people are getting into right now. So, without getting too much into the nitty-gritty details of all that stuff, actually I do need to cover one more thing. So, when you are deciding to purchase a firearm, or when you have purchased a firearm for the first time, the first and foremost thing you need to decide, usually this should be before you purchase your firearm, is what is the firearm for? These are effectively tools, and you do need to decide what that tool is for. If you are buying the wrong tool for the wrong job, you are going to regret it. Some tools can do certain jobs that they're not meant to be doing, and most firearms can do most jobs. It's just a matter of what it's best at, what it's optimized for. So, I would imagine right now a lot of people are buying firearms for the first time for home defense, because it seems like things are getting really, really crazy out there, and they're worried about looters, they're worried about, economic collapse. So they're buying their firearms to defend their homes. Fair point. So, other people are buying firearms for the first time because they're worried about dealing with people on the streets or in public encounters. Those would be concealed weapons that they would want to have those for, or carry weapons rather. That's another type of firearm you would want. There's three main types of firearms. The third scenario would be that you understand economic collapse is coming, you are tired of the current establishment or the current system, and you are ready to go to war. That is probably not going to be as common as the others, and some might say it's even rare to find that type of people that are looking for that type of firearm right now. I don't know who exactly I'm talking to, so pick your poison. Odds are you fall into one of three categories. You are defending your family, you are prepared to defend yourself in a public setting, or you are ready to go to war. I suppose there's the fourth scenario, which is hunting. I'm not going to get into that because I fucking hate hunters, and I don't think anyone should be killing animals right now. Like, sorry, like, your food source should be able to come from a fucking grocery store or something like that. If the grocery store's out and you have no other options, fine, go for it, whatever. But, like, otherwise, modern society that is supposed to be taken care of, supposed to be able to, like, stock the shelves and whatnot, you should not have to fucking go hunt at all. So, oh, I like the taste. Well, shove off. Go find a different video. So I'm gonna start by using a little bit of a weird thing here. This, some of you might have seen before in some of my other videos. This is not a real firearm. This is a toy. This is a airsoft gun, a 1911. I'm going to use this for a lot of my drills and practicing today. Just because this is not dangerous in any way, shape, or form. I don't even have BBs for this thing, honestly. I have long lost those. And I would never buy any more. I'm not an airsoft person. I just really wanted a gun that looked like a real gun. This was a, like, $30 toy. It is full metal. I don't know if you can tell by the sheen there. Now, I believe that it's like a zinc composite. So it might actually be mostly plastic for all I know, but it's got some weight to it. I'm not here to go into that though. We're talking about safety and drills, not my equipment. So there's going to be some pretty basic functions on pretty much any auto-loading pistol. As far as revolvers go, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say I don't recommend revolvers right now. Revolvers might be good for concealed carry, I guess. I personally don't recommend revolvers. I don't really think they fit any scenario optimally. They are very, very, very reliable weapons. But apart from that, there's really no niche that they fit in. You know, they don't have a large capacity. They can handle big loads and hot loads, but that's, you know, okay, cool. Other guns can too, especially autoloaders. They're reliable. You don't have to clean them very much. I'm trying my best here to speak to the benefit of wheel guns, but honestly, I'm just not a fan. And I'm going to let my bias show there. I don't think anyone in a modern setting should be using a wheel gun. You know, if you're just trying to do cowboy shit and have fun and, like, take it to the range, great, awesome, perfect reason to have one. But if you are genuinely serious about self-defense or even assault, the wheel gun really has no place, in my opinion. So, anywho, and again, my opinion isn't worth spit. I'm not a professional, so take it for what you will. So, they're going to have safety features. Usually they have a manual safety of some kind. This one, you know, it's just a click down. This is literally just a mechanical safety because this notch, when it is actuated up here, prevents the slide from falling back. As long as that is the case, slide can't fall back, so nothing can happen as far as the actions and the mechanisms of the weapon. Once that is down, the slide can go back. And when the slide goes back, what's happening? I'm just going to preface this again by saying I am assuming that the person I'm speaking to right now knows literally nothing about firearms. I am teaching a brand new person. So if you feel a little bit patronized or a little bit condescended, I'm sorry. I am speaking to the lowest common denominator right now. Bear with me, please. When this slide gets racked back, pull the safety off again. It is going to pull back, exposing chamber here. And what is happening is when it pulls all the way back, it is going to move forward, and then normally there is a bullet somewhere in here in the magazine, and it is going to hit the back end of that bullet, or the round, the whole casing, and push it forward into battery, somewhere up here. Okay? And then once it's in here, there's a little striker on the firing pin. And when you pull the trigger, on a 1911, there's usually another safety back here, a grip safety. So this also has to be actuated in order for you to pull the trigger. Once you pull that trigger, in a real firearm, mind you, not in this toy, the striker is going to come out of the firing pin, or it is the firing pin, I'm not entirely sure, and it is going to strike the center primer on the bullet, or on the casing, on the round. When you do that, it is going to ignite, it's hopefully going to ignite all the powder inside of the casing, propelling the bullet, which is just the front part of the round, out of the barrel of the gun. So that's effectively how an autoloader is going to work. When that combustion takes place in here, it is going to pull the whole slide back, all the way back, by way of propellant, by gas propelled essentially, through the combustion of that gunpowder. That is going to pull it all the way back, and then there's a recoil spring in here, or up here. I think it's up here. It is going to push it back and pull another bullet. So that's why it's an auto-loading pistol. So it's a semi-automatic. And what that means is it's loading for you, but it's not firing for you. That's the difference between a semi-automatic and a fully automatic. Fully automatic will fire for you as long as you're pulling the trigger. Semi-automatic resets. So you will have to pull the trigger again. And you will have to pull it again every time you wish to fire. Unless, because there's exceptions to everything in guns, just like if you're playing like Magic the Gathering or something, there's always an exception. Unless you had a binary trigger. A binary trigger, what that would do is, it's kind of a new technology. When you pull the trigger, it will activate and fire, and when you release the trigger, it will activate and fire. So there's a reset happening between each action. This technically does not count as fully automatic, because fully automatic counts only one trigger pull firing multiple bullets. So in the case of binary, you are pulling the trigger, that is counting as one pull, one fire, and releasing the trigger, that is one release and one fire. Technically does not count as fully automatic. We're going to see a lot of loopholes in guns. And those are not the kind of loopholes that people are always trying to close when it comes to gun control. These are loopholes that gun manufacturers and gunsmiths have developed in order to get around very stupid, very non-practical, absolutely insane, doesn't make sense gun laws. A lot of the times when the ATF and the government decide to make a gun law or a gun control law, they are literally just taking a dart and throwing it at the board and hoping that that helps like lower gun crime. No one over there has any idea what the fuck they're doing as far as actually trying to reduce gun crime. If they did, they would not be going after guns. They would be going after gangs like KKK and Three Percenters and those kind of fucking assholes. Because ultimately, all of those good old boys are the ones that are causing the problems. It's not the guns. It is the culture around the guns. Moving on. So that's 1911. I guess we'll show the mag as well. And this is going to be pretty similar to what you would experience in a real firearm, and even looks pretty similar. Normally these like little indentations are actually drilled out and they would be windowed so that you could see how many bullets were in here, or rounds rather. Terminology is one thing that's gonna piss a lot of people off when it comes to firearms. You gotta get things right. Some people will say, "This is the clip." It's not a clip, it's a magazine. Ultimately, does it matter? No. But people are gonna get butthurt. So when you hit the mag release button on a firearm, auto-loading pistol primarily, that is going to release the magazine, and then you would change that magazine out and grab a fresh magazine, and you're good to go. I should clarify, you're actually not good to go. On pretty much any firearm at that point, you would then need to rack the slide. So we'll get into that a little bit because that's going to come into trains of thought as far as how to carry something. So let's see here. Yeah, we're just gonna take a couple rounds out here. So with my 45, which is what I'm about to show you, I do normally keep do two more just to be sure. I do normally keep the magazines loaded. However, I keep them topped off with snap caps. I'll get into that later, but I'm just telling you now so that everybody understands that this is completely safe. And I am at no risk of doing damage to myself or any of my loved ones or any of my property right now. Okay, so this is a real firearm. This is my 45. I've showed this off in a few other videos. When you decide you are going to own a firearm, you're going to have a very, what I consider to be difficult choice to make. You're going to have to decide whether or not you want to keep your magazines fully loaded. You're going to have to decide whether or not you want to keep your magazines in the firearm. And most importantly, and the one that I think should concern most people the most, is you have to decide whether or not you want to keep the firearm hot in the barrel. Now, obviously, there is still a manual mechanical safety, and you can still keep this firearm relatively safe. However, that being said, this is potentially very dangerous because there is a round in this firearm. It is hot and ready to go. So, This is a snap cap. It is a training round. There's no danger here. I'm still nervous all the same, and I feel like I should be. But when you take that safety off and you pull that trigger, it's going bang. It is firing. If that was a live round, that would have went off. And that's all it took, was just that trigger pull. Just that trigger pull. Now, you can see it's not actually loaded. To fire the next shot, we would have to pull the trigger all the way back. Or, if you want a smoother trigger pull, you can pull this back and then pull the trigger right here. Now, if you pull the trigger without this being pulled back, it's going to be a much firmer trigger pull. It took a lot more force to pull that back. So that's another reason, another thing that a lot of people, when they're carrying, will do is they'll pull it cocked so that it is much easier to pull that trigger. Again, it's another very dangerous choice to make. It's depending on how responsible you truly think you are with a firearm versus how much you truly need to have this gun ready to go. I personally, like I said, I don't like to have the magazines in the gun unless I have them topped off with snap caps. I'm now going to eject the snap cap. And then, luckily for me, I actually have a decocking mechanism on this firearm, so I can pull this down, and that safely decocks the hammer and the trigger without actually firing the firing pin, as far as I know. Again, I'm very paranoid when it comes to firearms. I feel like everyone is going to have different levels of comfort when it comes to that kind of stuff. But ultimately, it really just comes down to how responsible you think you are with a firearm and how much you need it. In my case, the reason I am so careful about all of this is because I personally know that, one, I am not going to be carrying this firearm. There is no situation where I am going to have this firearm leaving my home. It's just simply not going to happen. Unless I am taking it to a range, and I mean, in that case, it's still probably going to have the snap caps in the top. Because there's no danger, really, at a range. I shouldn't say that, because, you know, there's definitely been some cases where people get into altercations at the range. And especially for individuals like myself who are, quote-unquote, leftists, it's a dangerous place to be in, because most firearm owners are not of the left-leaning mind in any capacity, and they are not going to take kindly to someone on the left who advocates for socialism, communism, anarchy, any of those kinds of things. So I'm going to put this back. So we're taking the magazine. This is completely full, except the top round is a snap cap. What that means is, if I pulled this back, the next round that I chambered would still be safe. It's one of those completely unnecessary safety practices that I personally observe. Most other people don't expect that from other people. Now, to play devil's advocate, if you were to carry a pistol or something like that as a carry weapon to defend yourself in a public environment, then and only then I would not advocate topping off with snap caps, and I would possibly even recommend keeping your first round chambered. One of the other benefits of keeping that top round chambered is that if you're keeping that top round chambered, you have room for one more round in your magazine. Alternatively, you can fill the entire magazine and then still put one round in the chamber, like manually, through the ejection port. So you have one extra capacity in your firearm all the time. The reason you would want to do that is because it is much faster and more accessible to be able to drop the safety and fire than it is to drop the safety, rack the slide back, and then fire. Those precious seconds in those kind of situations can mean the difference between life, death, or destruction. You don't really want to play around with fire when it comes to situations where you think you're going to need a firearm. If, for whatever reason, you think you are going to need a firearm in a public space, your best bet is to take that firearm, or whatever firearm you have accessible to you, and bring it into that public space. Provided that you think that your need for that firearm outweighs any kind of law that might be in that area. If there's laws prohibiting the use of firearms in an area and you still bring one and you didn't really need it in that immediate moment, and a situation doesn't present itself where you feel threatened enough that you do need that firearm, then you're going to look like a dumbass. So just keep that in mind. Really, really consider. Put a lot of thought into it. Do I need this firearm in this moment? The other thing is, obviously, you're not always going to know. You're not always going to have the luxury of knowing when and where you're going to need a firearm. That's why so many people just carry all the time. It's dangerous, and it's not ideal, but that's just the kind of life that some people live. Some people would rather be safe than sorry. Problem with that line of thinking is that, and I explained this in another video, if you are carrying a firearm on your person all the time, every day of the year, 365 days, you are presenting yourself with an opportunity to be harmed by that firearm 365 days of the year. However, if you do not carry a firearm every single day of your life, every single day of the year, the only time that you are presented with a danger from another firearm, from a firearm in general, is when someone else is actively trying to do you harm with a firearm. Those scenarios are going to be so rare, so incredibly rare, that it is going to make you seriously consider whether or not you really even need to carry at all. I personally don't carry. I live in an area where it is safe enough that I do not feel a need to carry ever. We've had a couple shooting incidents in my lifetime here. None of them were ever like super dangerous. None of them were ever close. None of them were ever random or sporadic. They were always targeted attacks. And as long as the target is not you, you should be fine. I can't speak for every environment. I can't speak for every city. I can't speak for every state, country, whatever. So, obviously, know where to apply this kind of information and know if it's applicable to you. if you live in a very heavy urban environment where there are lots of firearms and people packing heat all over the place all the time, obviously you're probably going to deal with firearms a lot more than I am. So keep that in mind. All right, so I'm just going to quickly kind of go over the other firearms that I have, because I think I've covered most of the basics of the rudimentary safety and whatnot. The only other thing I might get into is ammunition type. So this is my wife's EC9S. This is definitely more of a concealed carry type weapon. You'll see I have a dummy mag in there right now. So that is not loaded. Just to let all you freaks who get all butthurt about that know. We'll go ahead and discharge that. So put the safety back on, and all right, continuing. So yeah, these are definitely more suited for carry. In fact, this is so small that without the finger groove of the normal magazine here, my pinky has nowhere to go. I am literally holding this with 4 fingers, and then my pinky is just kind of out there in empty space, kind of bracing up against the bottom of the magazine there. That's how small this is. These are great for concealed carry. Again, I kind of just am repeating myself here. But for concealed carry, you do want a smaller firearm, as far as I'm concerned. You are not going to want something that prints, and what printing mean, if you're not aware. So right now, if I'm just kind of sitting here, you can't really tell that I have a firearm. But if I pull this taut, or this fabric just happens to be kind of stretchy, you can tell right here, this is printing. There's a firearm there. So it's the difference between someone being able to tell you have a firearm on you and it's concealed versus having it genuinely concealed. Excuse me, Jesus. So that's pretty much all there is to this one. This does have a few more safety features, which is great. I've gone over that in a few more videos, or a few other videos. So this is a blade safety on the trigger. That has to be fully depressed in order for the trigger to pull all the way back. So it won't pull all the way back. Now, well, yeah, it won't pull all the way back without that. So there's that. Also has a mechanical safety right here, just like the other one. And on those mechanical safeties, a lot of the times you'll have a white dot or no dot at all when it is actually activated. That's when the safety is activated, rather. And once it is activated, you'll see a red dot there. As far as firearms goes, there's a saying, red is dead. That means that if the safety is exposing a red dot or a red ring or anything like that, that is red, red means dead. That means the firearm is live and is ready to go. Whether or not the firearm is hot and loaded, that's up to you and how you are handling the firearm. But has nothing to do with the mechanism. So we'll go ahead and put that away. That's concealed carry pistol. So in kind of explain that every weapon has a role, or a thing it's best suited for. So to go into that, something like this was obviously a concealed carry pistol. My pistol, my FNX 45, this is a full-size combat pistol. This thing is as big as my fucking head. This is not a concealed carry gun, and I don't think anyone fucking would carry this concealed. It's just too heavy, it's too large, it's too cumbersome. This is a combat pistol, and what that means is this is a going to war gun. This is shit has already started and you are fighting. There is no like trying to stop someone, trying to, you know, just stop an altercation before it happens. This is, the altercation is happening and you are in it. There is 15 rounds in these double stack magazines. These are large magazines. There's a large mag well. There's a large gun. It's a big boy gun. So this is going to be what you would use if you didn't have a primary on you. I mean, again, with the going to war concept, you're probably not getting surprised. You're going into it. So that would be the sidearm that you would keep on you. So when you run out of ammunition in your primary, then you would switch. Primary being like a rifle, a shotgun, something like that. With something like a 1911, most people will say you can't carry this, it's a full-size combat pistol. Normally I would agree, however, this is only a 7-round magazine. Obviously, again, this is a toy, so bear with me. But this is a single stack. This is a lot thinner magazine, and because of that, the gun itself has a lot slimmer profile. This is not as wide of a firearm. Still basically big as my head, but not quite the same overall size. You could feasibly conceal this. So that's one of those guns that fits more of both roles. It could be a concealed firearm that could be combat ready. Mind you, the magazine only fits 7 rounds with 1 in the chamber, so 8 total, no matter how you slice it. Unless you're using a 1911 that is chambered at 9mm, which is a thing. Getting into the 1022, or rather the common 22 rifles. These are ultimately going to be the most common and most affordable entry-level weapons that anyone is going to have access to. These are incredibly cheap and very good guns. The only downside to this is it is a 22. But that being said, these still have decent sized magazines. The magazines are 10 rounds because 22 is so tiny. And that fits completely flush with the rifle. So there is no added size or obstruction. This is as big as it gets. The fact that I can fit basically the whole rifle on camera shows you just how fucking small it is. You can pretty easily lift this with one hand. It is not heavy in any way, shape, or form. There is 0 recoil, which means that ultimately this stock is completely unnecessary. Only reason that it's there is for legal reasons, because if you were to fucking chop this off right here at the grip, this would suddenly become an SBR. The idea of a 22 SBR is a very comical concept, but the ATF will still fucking sue the shit out of you and fucking take away everything you have. So, bear that in mind. Otherwise, great firearm, great platform to learn on, highly recommend, especially for some of you people who are looking for something new to get you into everything. This is a great starting platform. This is what I learned on. This is a great way to start. All of the mechanisms are going to be fundamentally the same. especially if you're going from this to an AK, which is what I did. Your safety is going to be a little bit different. Right here, it's just mechanical safety, like a little button switch. You push that in, and on this side you'll see that's red. So that's how you know that's good to go. This side it's black. That side it's red. And then with the magazine, there's a little magazine release here. And normally, if gravity is doing its job, it'll just fall right out. I've got some sling mounts on here. These don't come standard because originally I was planning on this actually being my combat rifle before I had enough money to buy a real combat rifle, which is not to say this would not work. It would. It's just you're going to have to do a lot more work on your part. Gun won't carry most of the work for you. It's got some flip-up sights, which makes accuracy pretty easy to handle. Although I don't know how much accuracy would matter on a firearm that basically only has an effective distance of, you know, I'm actually going to shut my mouth because I have no idea. But anywho, yeah. So charging handle right here. This is the same on pretty much any firearm, rifle rather. You just pull this back. It's loading around in, again, just like the auto pistol, except this time you have the assist of a charge handle here. And then as soon as you push forward, it's pushing that into the battery, or into the barrel. So it's in battery. It's hot and it's ready to go. Obviously, I didn't have any rounds in here, so there's not going to be any rounds in there. That's something I want to talk about because it gets a lot of people mad. And in fact, I'm sure there's already comments on this video of people that haven't gotten this far already talking about angry comments and shit. I cannot stress this enough, and this is just my belief. You don't have to subscribe to it. It's my thing. If you know that there is no bullet or round in the gun, in the chamber, in the battery, and you know that your magazine is fundamentally empty, or in my case, filled with snap caps, then you know that you don't have to check the firearm because there's no chance that a round got in there. These rounds are not sentient, they're not organic, they're not living, breathing creatures. They don't move on their own, and unless there is someone in your homestead or in your presence that you do not trust, I would not say it's possible at all for this round to jump into the gun. It's not going to happen. So, there's a lot of mentality of people saying, like, you know, always do a barrel clear. I don't think it's necessary. So, moving on a little bit. Another thing I want to mention is people get really, really upset, even in videos, when you laze the target. So, I'm pointing my gun at you. This is upsetting you. One, this is a video. I can't shoot you through the internet. It's not fucking possible. Calm down. Two, with the same theory that I just talked about, with knowing that your firearm is empty, knowing that the barrel is cleared, knowing the magazine is cleared, this presents no danger. The opposite line of thought that most people subscribe to is always pretend that the firearm is loaded even when you know it's not. Asinine. And it might sound weird coming from me, who keeps my magazines loaded with snap caps, of all people, to be telling you about what is and what is not safe. It's asinine to believe that you should consider this firearm loaded even when it's not. When this weapon does not have a bullet in it, and you know it doesn't have a bullet in it, this cannot do anything to you as far as ballistics are controlled. Not a possibility. The other thing they say is don't put your finger on the trigger unless you intend to destroy whatever is in front of it. Practice the fucking trigger safely, making sure that there is nothing in your firearm but practice it, because you are going to need to know how this feels, when it breaks, when it resets. These are things you're going to need to practice and that you're going to need to understand. God damn, my lazy eye is fucking acting up today. But yeah, these are things you should train on. These are things you should practice. These are things you should understand. Another thing you'll notice is I have a lot of goofy accessories on my firearm. Whether or not I need these, who can really say? But I am of the belief that you should put as much gear on your firearm as you feel you need to make it comfortable. I didn't like the way that my hand felt when it gripped this grip up here without this on it. I put this on here, I have extra purchase, I have extra grip, this feels more comfortable to me. I then decided that if I'm not aiming my rifle and I'm just hip firing or not exactly trying to be accurate, I would much rather have this to choke up on, and that feels more comfortable to me. And honestly, I don't know of a lot of situations where I'm going to use this over this, because this is so comfortable. This feels much more easy to manage, and the recoil is so much easier to mitigate because I can pull down on the rifle as it's trying to rise up with each successive shot. So I can literally keep it completely straight, not have to worry about that. Whereas with this, I am just holding on to the rifle. I don't have the grip strength to pull this down that way. Whereas this is my whole arm keeping this completely steady and keeping this pulled into my shoulder here. Shoulder, not bicep. Shoulder, not bicep. Anywho, so I'm probably teaching you a lot of stuff that normal firearms instructors are going to fucking cry and cringe and whinge at. But I'm just offering an alternative. You don't have to listen to me. You can listen to actual instructors and people who deal with firearms on a daily basis. I am literally just a gun nut. But yeah, I also highly recommend getting snap caps and practicing with snap caps, because otherwise there is a potential that your firing pin can become damaged from dry firing. So don't do a bunch of dry fire drills without having a snap cap in here. But the other problem is, obviously, when I go to rack this back, it's ejecting. And luckily, my safety here has a cut in it, so I can hold the safety bar there, because otherwise, my snap cap was just kind of stuck in there. It's just loosely fitting in there. If you don't pull this back all the way, it will not eject properly. But you shouldn't need to do that because, again, this is auto. So what's going to happen is, bullet travels through here. The gas from this propelled bullet goes up through here in the gas chamber, travels all the way back here, and activates this. So this pushes all of this back and pulls this back, cycling another round. Cycling is a word I haven't used until just now, and I should have. That's really irresponsible of me. But anywho, and again, just like with the Ruger, the 1022, this has a paddle, so you just press this in and pull the magazine out. The magazines on the Ruger are obviously different, the regular 10-round magazines, but that being said, the 25-round magazines are not different. They are effectively the same thing. There goes my Snapcat. So anywho, this video has gone on long enough. I think I've covered pretty much everything I need to say. If anyone has any questions or concerns, feel free to hit me up in the comments. If you know my Facebook, feel free to hit me up on Facebook. I'm here as a resource. If any of you don't feel comfortable talking to a bunch of fucking Republican conservative gun nuts, I am open-minded and willing to talk about these things. If you don't feel comfortable with firearms, if you don't feel comfortable with any of this kind of stuff, and you're not really sure where to get in, but you do want to feel safe, I am a service. I am a resource that you can access. I have all the time in the world. Hit me up. Let me know what you're wanting to talk about. I will make time for you. So, I want all of you to be safe. I want all of you to feel safe. I don't want any of you to feel anxious, like, you know, all of this pandemic stuff is bearing down on you and you don't feel safe because there's all these gun nuts and you don't have a firearm to protect yourself with. Hit me up. As long as you've got like $200, you can have a firearm. It's unfortunate that we have to even go that high, but that's just the way it is. So, hit me up. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you want to talk about. Let me know if you're concerned with anything. Any questions, let me know. That's me. That's this. That's all of it. So, take care.